The sight of her SUV, that monstrous, gleaming black monstrosity, was a physical gut punch. It sat there, perpendicular to the curb, a brazen, unapologetic steel wall across the entrance to my home, not just blocking my car, but the entire driveway, the access to my life. I felt the hot, furious blood pulse in my ears. This wasn't the first time, not the 10th, not even the 50th. This was a siege, a relentless, petty war waged by a woman who saw the world as her personal fiefdom. Karen, our self-appointed HOA tyrant. A woman whose entire identity was built on the shaky foundation of a poorly understood bylaws book and a deep-seated need for control. I stood on my porch, my fists clenched, just breathing. The morning sun did nothing to warm the cold, sick feeling in my stomach. The air, usually so peaceful with the chirping of birds, now felt heavy, suffocating. I needed to get to work. An urgent, non-negotiable meeting was looming. But here I was, a prisoner in my own home. My first thought was a scream, a guttural roar of frustration that would shatter the quiet suburban facade. But a lifetime of holding back, of being the bigger person, stopped me. My hands, however, had other ideas. They found the shovel in the garage, the worn wooden handle feeling familiar and heavy. A thought, a wild, rebellious fantasy I'd been nursing for weeks, finally took root. I grabbed the shovel, walked to the edge of my driveway, and plunged it into the soft earth. The sound, a satisfying schchock, was a liberation. I was done being reasonable. I was done with polite letters and unanswered calls to the HOA board. I was digging a moat. A real, honest-to-God, driveway-encompassing moat. The trench widened. The dirt piled up in a dark, fragrant mound. Sweat slicked my brow, not from the physical exertion, but from the adrenaline, the sheer audacity of my action. I heard a distant, high-pitched shriek. I didn't need to look up. I knew that sound. It was the battle cry of a Karen. "What do you think you're doing?" she screeched, her voice like a rusty hinge. I kept digging, the shovel's rhythm a steady, defiant beat. "You're ruining the aesthetic. This is against the bylaws. Do you know how much a new sidewalk costs?" She was a blur of righteous indignation, her hands flapping, a theatrical performance for the entire neighborhood. And then, a glimmer of the truth emerged. A crack in the facade. A quiet, elderly neighbor, Mr. Henderson, shuffled over, his eyes wide with a strange mix of fear and admiration. He leaned in close, his voice a low whisper. "She doesn't own this spot," he said, gesturing vaguely at the patch of curb. "That's common property. But she's been telling everyone it's hers. And she's been forging signatures on the HOA parking regulations for years to back it up. I found the old meeting minutes from before she moved in. They're all different." My head snapped up. The shovel paused midair. Forging signatures. Years. The cold, sick feeling was replaced with a hot, righteous fury. This wasn't just about a blocked driveway. This was about a deliberate, sustained deception. A deep, conspiratorial breath escaped my lips. This was a game I was now prepared to play. The dramatic confrontation was inevitable, and it arrived 3 days later. The moat was complete. A 3-foot wide, 2-foot deep trench that encircled the end of my driveway. At its edge, a sturdy, custom-built drawbridge, a testament to late-night woodworking fueled by pure spite and caffeine. It sat, a magnificent symbol of my rebellion. Its ropes coiled neatly, the bridge raised. Karen, in a fit of absolute apoplexy, had called an emergency HOA meeting in her living room. The neighborhood, a collection of nervous onlookers and quiet sympathizers, had reluctantly gathered. She presented a cease and desist letter, waving it like a holy relic. "This is a violation of every single bylaw. He's a menace, a danger to our children," she railed, her voice cracking with fury. "And the smell? He's filled it with some kind of stagnant water. It's a mosquito factory." My turn. I stood, calm, collected, a thick binder of documents clutched in my hand. Let's review the bylaws, shall we? Karen, I said, my voice steady, dangerously quiet. I presented my own evidence, a copy of the original 1998 bylaws, and a timeline of the amendments she had fabricated, complete with side-by-side comparisons of the forged signatures and the real ones I'd sourced from a local archivist. A collective gasp rippled through the room. The downfall was swift and beautiful. Mr. Henderson, emboldened by my public presentation, produced the original meeting minutes he had found. She changed the rules, made up the parking restrictions, he said, his voice trembling slightly, but his resolve firm. The tide turned. Faces that had been passive and fearful now looked at Karen with a mixture of shock and disgust. She tried to deny it, to dismiss it as a conspiracy, her frantic words a sputtering, desperate defense. But the evidence was overwhelming. A young couple, new to the neighborhood and tired of her incessant meddling, stood up. She told us we couldn't plant a fruit tree because the bylaws said no edible plants. But we looked it up, and that's not a rule, the husband said. And suddenly, the floodgates opened. Story after story, a deluge of petty tyrannies and fabricated regulations, poured out. Karen, her face drained of all color, her meticulously styled hair slightly askew, sank into her armchair. The silence that followed was deafening, a palpable vacuum where her authority once stood. The reign of Queen Karen was over. The inspiring conclusion. Well, it wasn't a fairy tale. The Moat driveway became a local legend, a talking point, a reminder of what happens when a community finally stands up. Karen moved out 2 months later, a ghost in her own house. The HOA presidency passed to a committee of reasonable, well-meaning neighbors. The Moat, it turned out, was a little much, and I eventually filled it in. But the drawbridge remains. It's a small, symbolic reminder of a line that was crossed and the battle that was won. The neighborhood is quieter now, more communal, with a renewed sense of shared purpose. We have block parties again. We talk to each other. The whole bizarre ordeal forced us to look at the silent frustrations we all held and realize that together, we had the power to change things. But it makes me wonder, was digging a moat an act of a desperate man driven to the brink? Or a brilliant, necessary catalyst for change? Was it right? Or was it wrong? What do you think?